Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us.
The Monroe County Sheriff's Department is putting drug dealers on notice.
The department is running a major operation in the Amory area. Our Quentin Smith is live in Monroe County with the latest.
Joey, deputies set up checkpoints on Industrial Park Road in Amory looking for any drug activity. Sheriff Cantrell says for the past few months now, they've received complaints and tips about illegal drug activity taking place at the businesses and plants in that area. And today, Sheriff Cantrell says he's finally had enough. For nearly 3 hours, deputies went looking into cars, trying to track down any illegal activity taking place. Now, I was out there with the sheriff's deputies. I witnessed them arrest 2 men who were in possession of marijuana. They handcuffed those 2 men and brought them here to the Monroe County Jail. But that wasn't the only drug sweep they made. Once they finished up there, they then went over to Nettleton, rather. Cantrell says they made an arrest on a big drug dealer. They were able to arrest the drug dealer as well as seize possession of all of his drugs. Now, Cantrell says today sends a message that his deputies are not going to tolerate drugs being sold in Monroe County.
We're out here to enforce the law. And if you're out here doing drugs and you're selling drugs and using drugs in this county, then we're going to deal with you. We hope and pray that there's nobody, but we know they are. So we're out here to do our job, and we're going to do it very well, and we're going to do it in a manner that law enforcement would be represented in the right way.
Now, we'll hear more from Sheriff Cecil Cantrell about today's drug sweep coming up tonight on WCBI News at 9 and 10. But for now, reporting live in Monroe County, Quentin Smith, WCBI News.
Tupelo police are looking for a gunman after an overnight shooting. Officers were called to Hilldale Apartments on Monument Drive about 11:30 last night. A man was shot in his side. Investigators say he was taken to the hospital with what appears to be a non-life-threatening injury. No information on a possible suspect or motive at this time. Anyone with information should call Crime Stoppers of Northeast Mississippi at the number on your screen, 1-800-773-TIPS.
A Pontotoc County man is going back to prison to serve the remaining 15 years of a sentence after violating his probation. A circuit court judge making that ruling today. Lewis Winston Scott was recently arrested for impersonating a police officer and sexual assault. Allie Martin has more.
During the 90-minute revocation hearing, 44-year-old Lewis Winston Scott sat by himself, arms and legs shackled, as investigators from the Lee and Union County Sheriff's Departments presented their evidence. Back in 2000, Scott was sentenced to 30 years in prison with 15 suspended for kidnapping and 2 counts of sexual battery. He was on probation when authorities say he downloaded a free cell phone app that flashed alternating red and blue lights. He's accused of using that app to stop a woman just north of Tupelo around 1:40 in the morning on August 26th. That victim became suspicious, and when she saw the suspect with a knife, she sped off and called 911. A short time later, Scott is accused of using the Police Lights app to stop a second victim on I-22 just west of Blue Springs. In that case, he is accused of forcing the victim into his car, driving her to a remote area of Union County, and sexually assaulting her. He drove her back to her car and released her. Judge Paul Funderburk ruled there was sufficient probable cause to find Scott had violated his probation.
This individual will be placed back in the state penitentiary. Not only will he have to serve the 15 years, but it's a day-for-day sentence where he cannot get out early, he cannot get out on probation or parole.
While he's pleased Scott's probation was revoked, Sheriff Johnson wonders why the convicted sex offender wasn't locked up earlier this year. In February, Lewis Winston Scott pleaded guilty in Pontotoc Justice Court to misdemeanor charges of domestic violence, and he also pleaded guilty to 2 counts of obstructing access to an emergency vehicle. Those are violations of his probation, but Scott was still out on the streets.
I mean, we deal with it every day. There are hundreds of people that are on probation and parole and early release, coming up with this theory that we're saving money for the taxpayers and not having to incarcerate them. But look at the danger that you're putting the citizens of our community in by these individuals being out.
Scott is now in custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections. He still faces an attempted kidnapping charge in Lee County, along with 3 counts of sexual battery, 1 count of attempted armed robbery, and kidnapping in Union County. He will have to come back to face those charges. In Tupelo, I'm Allie Martin, WCBI News.
An MDOC spokesperson says the agency is reviewing the case.
Well, yesterday, you may remember, we began a look at the rise in serious crimes being committed by juveniles, but when are those crimes considered serious enough to move the suspect to the adult system?
Our Parker King joins us live from the Lowndes County Courthouse with more on the process.
The crimes that we're talking about are acts that we can see adults doing, not kids. These situations put judges in a tight spot, and the outcome isn't always a positive one.
Like adult court, youth court has a specific process when dealing with breaking laws.
When they're charged, they'll be brought in, and if it is something within our jurisdiction, then they'll come in and a decision will be made whether or not to detain them or to release them to their parents. And if we decide to detain them, then they have to have a detention hearing to decide whether to keep them in the back until their trial comes up or to release them to their parents.
So what exactly is the tipping point for trying a child as an adult? Many times it's because of their criminal history.
If youth court has exhausted all of its means to help the child, then a decision is made and they are certified as an adult. But that has to be a process that's done through the court, and the judge at that point would rule that we've exhausted all of our programs and detentions and training school, and all of those things have been exhausted, and we have nothing left to offer that child.
Once a child is over the age of 13, a capital offense automatically sends their case to adult court, completely skipping the youth court process.
But that does not necessarily mean they'll stay within the adult system. The circuit judges have the authority and the ability to remand those children back to be handled under the jurisdiction of the youth court.
And certainly pending the time of the arrest until the time of the trial, they're going to be in a juvenile detention center because they're not going to be put in with an adult population.
Juveniles are never incarcerated, they are detained. They also cannot be guilty. They're simply classified as delinquent.
Where in big court, in adult court, most everybody ends up plea bargaining. And then, of course, your adjudication is guilty. So you become a misdemeanor or a felon, which you don't become as long as you stay in the juvenile system.
It's not something people may think of, a teenager in an adult prison, but it does happen. Prosecutors and detention center workers hope that their programs can break the cycles of repeat offenders and keep youths separate from adults. Live outside of Lowndes County Courthouse, Parker King, WCBI News.
Some good information there. All right, thanks a lot, Parker. We'll turn things over now to Chief Meteorologist Keith Gibson. He has your first look at your forecast. Keith?
Joy, I think today is probably one of the best days of 2017. Yesterday was very nice. Today, absolutely amazing. Still clear there in Vernon, Alabama. No issues whatsoever right now. Low and mid 70s right now. The sun getting ready to set here in about 45 minutes, and temperatures will be cooling on down from the 70s into the 60s and upper 50s by 11 o'clock. And our lows tonight, much like earlier this morning, down into the low 50s, maybe even a few upper 40s too. Your full forecast in just a few minutes.
Retired State Representative Tyrone Ellis is putting his support behind a candidate running to fill the seat he left in the legislature this summer. During a brief ceremony in Unity Park in Starkville this morning, Ellis formally endorsed Shek Taylor. Ellis says he has carefully researched Taylor's background and even consulted with colleagues on the state level about his capabilities. Ellis says Taylor's passion for public education was a major factor in deciding to endorse him.
When it comes to education for a city like Starkville, Mississippi, where you have the home of Mississippi State University, you cannot afford to fumble the ball. You know, you cannot afford to make missteps. You've got to be strong. And I just truly believe in my heart that Shek Taylor is that strong person to carry that ball.
Anyone who knows Representative Ellis knows that his integrity and passion for the job must lead him to make a strong decision for whoever he endorses, and I'm proud to be that person.
Taylor faces former Starkville Alderwoman Lisa Wynn and business owner Narissa Bradford in the November 7th election.
A $5 million paving project is nearing the end of the road in Louisville. The city has been working on 60 deteriorating streets for about a year. FEMA money is helping to fund the project. Mayor Will Hill says the city is on schedule but will have to crunch numbers.
We've recently bid for traffic signals throughout the entire city. We're reevaluating that one now because it did not fit in our current budget that we allocated. We're going to see what we can achieve. So we're still living within our means, but it just takes time as we continue. And the cost of things, the cost of doing business continues to go up.
Hill says the project is about 80% complete.
Selena Schaefer here in Lowndes County, where multiple emergency response teams responded to a decontamination drill this morning. I'll have more on why these drills are so important to the public and the subjects coming up.
News at 6 with Andrea Self and Joey Barnes.
Welcome back. Multiple emergency response agencies go to Baptist Golden Triangle in Columbus this morning for a decontamination drill.
WCBI Selena Schaefer tells us why these training exercises are necessary.
We test our plans to make sure that there are no gaps in our plan.
Practice makes perfect, or that was the goal at Thursday's drill. The fire department, police department, MEMA, hazmat team, and BMH staff all tested their communication with one another so that in the event of a real emergency, each agency knows their role.
In a real event, we all will be working together and we know each other plans and what to do in case there is an emergency in Lowndes County.
Students from MUW's nursing program played multiple roles in Thursday's drill, from student to victim and even first responder. Professors from the school say that this is a perfect scenario for students to learn the skills they need to know to react to these emergency situations.
They'll get to see from the hospital standpoint and from other community agencies, emergency management, and the Department of Health. The real-world experience of seeing how everyone communicates together, how everyone has to work together in times of a disaster.
The scenario also included surrounding medical offices and put the office's preparations to the test.
It'll test their communications, how they'll handle their patients. If they've got patients that are supposed to be coming in for an appointment, it'll test their contact. Okay, bring up the question, how do we contact these people to tell them not to come right now and set them up another appointment? So it's testing them with their communications within their facilities.
Following the drill, the agencies will meet and discuss what worked and what might need improvement. In Lowndes County, Selena Schaefer, WCBI News.
Lowndes County performs this type of drill once a year.
Through the weekend, things will be simply stunning around here. Lots of sunshine, fall-like temperatures. It's looking great. Your full forecast is next.
Meteorologist Keith Gibson.
Sunny and comfortable in Tupelo right now, 74 degrees. The air is dry. The wind is light. It is a great Thursday afternoon, soon to be evening here. 75 in Columbus, 77 in Tuscaloosa and in Jackson. High pressure coming on in and an absence of cloud cover back to the northwest. And we have days and days of sunshine coming our way. A cool one tonight, a bright moon shining overhead as well. Low 50s out there. Some of you could briefly dip into the upper 40s. Very similar to the morning we had. You may need that jacket here by mid to late evening. Same story early tomorrow morning. And then we get back into the mid 70s for your lunch hour tomorrow. Low 80s in some spots on our Friday afternoon. About 78 to 81. That should be our temperature range tomorrow afternoon. Now, Football Saturday is looking pretty good across the region. These games will kick off at varying times here on Saturday, but temperatures will be comfortable. Lots and lots of sunshine here. Clear conditions for your Saturday. 3 hurricanes, Jose, Katia down there in the southwestern Gulf, and then Irma. We are most concerned about Irma right now. The eye of the storm very visible, and you can see this was earlier today taken from space, and even some patches of clearing, these little what we call mesovortices in the middle of that swirling around. Vibrant is that eye right now, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb. The wind now at 175 miles per hour, sustained, moving back to the west-northwest. And for a point of reference, there's Miami, Florida right there, Nassau in the Bahamas, and that is the island of Cuba. It looks like this will continue to move back to the northwest as we go through time and affect the southeastern United States. Wave heights right now over 40 feet with that system, and by Saturday afternoon, early afternoon, somewhere between Nassau and Cuba, it's expected to take a sharp turn to the right and get into parts of southern Florida and then go all the way through Florida into Georgia and the Carolinas as we get into the latter part of the weekend and early next week. Now, that current track is the worst case scenarios for some folks down there in southern Florida. So, of course, it all depends on where that turn is going to be as far as the situation down there. But for us, we do have high pressure that will protect us here for the near term. You can see the hurricane coming on into the picture here as we get into the course of the weekend that will meander back to the north. Now, the big story for us is, will we see any of these clouds, maybe some showers here by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week? At this point, that's a little bit of an outlier. We're keeping the forecast dry Tuesday and Wednesday, but we could see a few showers here. But in general, no major effects from Irma around here. Just great weather through the weekend.
Coming up, find out what Louisiana Tech plans to do to stop Nick Fitzgerald and the Mississippi State offense Saturday. That's coming up next in sports.
Is brought to you by your local Ford dealers. Go further.
Many teams have a plan in place to try and stop Nick Fitzgerald, but it's a whole different ballgame when you see a 6'5", 230-pound quarterback barreling towards you on defense. That's the situation Louisiana Tech head coach Skip Holtz is in as he attempts to slow down the runaway freight train that is Nick Fitz.
Everybody says, how do you defend Nick Fitzgerald? I'm not sure. I've watched 11 games from a year ago. I've watched this year. I think a lot of people have tried a lot of different things, but when you look at a two-headed monster, the way he can do so many things, he's so good with his feet. He's their leading ball carrier, responsible for 4,400 yards a year ago. He will be better in person than I think he is on film. As I walked off the field with Dak Prescott and said, yeah, he's big and he's got a strong arm and he can run, but the way he handled himself, the composure and the way he ran that team, I thought he was the difference. I think the same thing is true with the Nick Fitzgerald.
Get to that game momentarily. Ole Miss will start things off Saturday, 11 a.m. That is on the SEC Network's alternate channel. So if you don't have that on your cable or satellite provider, you can watch our highlights and reaction that we'll have coming up WCBI Sports at 6 on Saturday. Bama on ESPN2 will have TCU Arkansas for you here on WCBI at 2:30. Tennessee Vandy at 3. Auburn, Clemson, South Carolina, Mizzou are two really good games at 6. And then your 6:30 slate of games, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas A&M's kicking off at 6, LSU's at 6:30. Scott Strickland announced on Twitter today that Florida, Northern Colorado has been canceled due to the potential effects of Hurricane Irma. And an MSG Louisiana Tech game is on the CBS Sports Network. We've had a couple questions as to if we have the ability to bring that game over on WCBI, and we do not. That game will be on the CBS Sports Network, so make sure you find that on your cable or satellite provider so you can get the Bulldogs versus the Bulldogs. It'll be a dog party. To junior college football, we're about set to kick off one of our viewing area games this evening in junior college football. That game is Northeast taking on East Central, so we're about 4 minutes away from that game kicking off. EMCC and ICC will kick off at 7 p.m. in big games. All of these teams playing MACJC South teams. Northwest is already underway at Pearl. We'll have highlights from Northeast, EMCC, and ICC hopefully coming up tonight at 10 here on WCBI. Sports as we get you set for another great week of football, whether it's JUCO, high school, college, or yes, the NFL does kick off tonight as well. And lastly, the basketball. A familiar face will be on the bench with Hale State Hoops this upcoming season as MSU graduate Dominique Dillingham will be joining Vic Schaefer's coaching staff for this season as a student assistant coach. Now, Dillingham, a member of the winningest class of seniors in MSU women's hoops history. She helped lead the Bulldogs to that national title game appearance in last season's finish to the year. MSU tips off the regular season November 10th against Virginia at home as they will host a doubleheader that Friday with the men, where they will unveil the national runner-up banner in a ceremony either before the game or halftime. So it should be a great evening for basketball with that. But again, junior college football tonight, high school football tomorrow night. Our game of the week will be Aberdeen at Pontotoc. Saturday college football, Sunday NFL. Football season. We're saying football season is here. Now it's really here when the NFL kicks out tonight. And you got Chiefs, Patriots coming up tonight as well. Yeah. So you got plenty of football to hold you over these next few days.
No doubt. And good to see Dillingham staying in Starkville a little longer.
Great to see you. Vic Schaefer was really excited about keeping her on the staff. Somehow she'll be able to draw a charge on the bench. I don't know if she doesn't check her play, but she'll find a way to do that.
She's tough. Yeah. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
I should have mentioned yesterday, but the complaint department is closed right now, so we are not taking any more orders from the complaint department. But weather-wise for us, very nice. We could see a few showers perhaps Tuesday, Wednesday in the backside of Irma, but not really a player for us.
It would be a serious stretch if someone called and complained at this point.
It would. It would.
Have a good night, everybody.